Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by Tony's LPs Are Us. I'm Tony. We're over here in Studio E. We have the Elvis light on, so we are recording. This video is something I've been trying to get to for about a week now, and it's my impressions, my review of this record. Actually, 5-record set, booklet, Blu-ray, Electric Lady Studios, a Jimi Hendrix Vision. I did an unboxing, it was very successful. A lot of people enjoyed that. I watched the Blu-ray, I listened to the 5.1, looked at the booklet, got some things in my head I want to talk about really quickly. It's 5 records, it's a marathon. I did 3 albums and then 2 albums, and I did the Blu-ray with the 5.1 and my 5.1 system. My analog system tracked these records flawlessly. This is a beautiful press. Cut by Bernie Grundman. His initials are in the dead wax, so accept no counterfeits. Make sure those initials are in that dead wax, RG. First I'm going to talk about the Blu-ray, and then I'll show everyone, the LPs and the booklet. We'll talk a little bit about what I thought about it. As far as the Blu-ray, you have the Blu-ray there. I believe the documentary's about an hour and a half, and then you have the complete 5.1 mix of the LP, First Rays of the New Rising Sun, which was one of the first records that the Hendrix family record company or label with JIMI Hendrix put out, the Hendrix family. So that was 97, I believe. So here you have a beautiful 5.1 mix for your surround sound home theater, or your your Blu-ray system, to whatever you use, your to whatever system you have for a 5.1. Really good sound on that. I'm just going to go over some comments I have. There's some criticisms. There's no place in the packet that safely holds the Blu-ray. There's not a slot in the booklet or a slot in the case that holds this Blu-ray. So what I propose to do is to get probably a MoFi sleeve, and within a white inner sleeve, a generic inner sleeve, or maybe even a Warner inner sleeve, and stick it in there and label it so that it could actually be part of the package. Here's the cover, and there's the back, and it has the tunes from the album that they remixed. The remixing is pretty good. I'll go into that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the film. The film is really cool. It's intriguing. It holds your interest. It's well paced. There's some nice clips of Jimmy. My only criticism on that is that it isn't a stereo mix. On my system, it was a mono. There's no rear speakers that come in on my surround system. There's tons of interviews. The problem with the interviews are they're from all over the time span. I don't believe there's a lot of new interviews in this. I think this recording was done a few years back. This movie was finally produced by John McDermott, who's the director, and Eddie Kramer. Really well done, well paced. Those are my only criticism. When I see Buddy Guy, and Buddy Guy looks like he's 50 years old, I like to see on the bottom Buddy Guy 1997 interview, or Mitch Mitchell or Billy Cox 1997 interview, because I have no way of putting that together. But that's just me. I did a lot of video taping in my earlier career. I did some documentaries for friends and personal things. So I always try to include some history of where the recording emanated from. That's not the case here. So that's my only criticism. As far as the documentary itself, really well done. I'll go over the booklet, which actually traces some of the steps that were in the film. You see the old club that Hendrix bought for $50,000 at a basically at a fire sale. The old club had went bankrupt. He decided to build a new club in that location in Manhattan, in the Village, and he wanted a studio. But in talking with Kramer, he basically decided, let's scrap the club, the nightclub scene, and instead of having a small, tiny studio for my personal use and my friends, let's build a state-of-the-art major studio with, you know, at least 2 studios, an A studio, B studio, and later on that was expanded. I went over that in another video. I believe the new studio today, Electric Lady, which is still in operation, has 4 studios, 4 separate studios. Originally it were 2 studios, A and B. Hendrix studio was A. That's all in the documentary. It goes through the perils of building this perils of building this studio. There was no template. No artist had ever attempted to build something at a separate location other than in their house. You know, plenty of artists had, you know, small studios in their house. George Harrison had maybe a 4-track reel-to-reel, you know, stuff like that, but nothing major. Pete Townsend probably had a studio built in his house, but not a studio where it would be commercially available for other artists to record and hang out. So just mind-boggling what they had to go through. There was actually a creek found. There's a creek that runs under Manhattan called Merritt Creek, I believe, and it was buried, and they put buildings on top of it, and somehow it flows into the Hudson River. It's a little river, little brook creek that flows into the Hudson River, and somehow the pipes that were channeling that underneath the structure broke, so they had a major flood in the basement. So whatever they did, they had to redo. They got pumps, they fixed the pipes, so all that's in there. And it also goes into how Hendrix paid for this originally. Whatever cash he had went into this studio. He actually would do a gig, pay the man for labor, pay the man for material, ran out of money, would do a couple more gigs. Basically gigging, sending the money to his partner, Mr. Jeffries, who was a partner in the club, in the studio. Of course, Eddie Kramer was prominent in building this studio, along with John Surrick. He was an architect who they kind of had him originally to do the layout for the club, but when the club idea was scrapped, they went to the studio and they kept him on. So him and Eddie Kramer built this state-of-the-art studio. Kramer, you know, got the best equipment available at that point, and the studio became Electric Lady, a legendary studio. And this box set is of the things that Jimmy either mixed there or recorded there prior to his death. It was about, he worked in the studio before it was actually open to other artists. So this chronicles that in the book. What I'm going to do is talk about the 5.1. The 5.1 in this is really nice, but I could still, when I compared it to the record that I have, I'd rather listen to this record in stereo rather than the 5.1. But it's intriguing. You hear, you know, a drum on the right side. You might hear Hendrix coming from your rear. You see the center channel. So it's well mixed. I only listened to it once. It has, I believe, 20 songs, and it has 4 songs that were extras from the record. And I think that's what it is. I think it's the album plus some bonus tracks. So it's about 20 tracks. And it has Freedom, Easy Rider, Angel, a nice mix of Angel. Isabella sounded really nice. One of my favorite songs. I believe that was on Woodstock 2. Okay, so Dolly Dagger, a classic. Drifting, a classic. Room Full of Mirrors, Astro Man. So all 5.1, and for those who enjoy listening to music in a 5.1 environment, really nice, really well done. I could hear the digital artifact after I listened to the record, or when I listened to the record, then I listened to the 5.1, just for my personal taste. That's just my taste. You guys may love that. I don't really listen to a lot of, I have a lot of 5.1, discs, and there's just not enough time to do everything, unfortunately. I'm really loaded up this week with new releases. That's why it took me a while to get to this. So I'm just talking too much. I'm wasting time. You want to hear my assessment. Well, before I do that, I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Tony's LPs Are Us. Thanks for all the subs, and I appreciate that. I can't really state how much. If you haven't subbed and you feel you want to sub and get into my channel a little more, please do so. It really helps us out. Now the box set. Here is the rear. It's kind of a metallic box. I still kept the shrink on it. It has a nice hype sticker, and I'll read the hype sticker here before I go into it. 38 previously unreleased recordings made at Electric Lady Studios in 1970. 5.1 surround mixes of the entire First Rays of the New Rising Sun album, plus 3 bonus tracks. So not 4 bonus tracks, but 3 bonus tracks. Also includes the critically acclaimed documentary Electric Lady Studios, a Hendrix Vision, a Jimi Hendrix Vision. 48-page booklet filled with rare photos. They're always rare photos, but I've seen them before. Hendrix handwritten song drafts, comprehensive liner notes, pressed on audiophile grade vinyl by Quality Record Pressings. And it doesn't tell you on this hype sticker, but the record is cut by the great Bernie Grundman. So that's a home run right there. And of course, Eddie Kramer, JIMI Hendrix, and I believe John McDermott is the producer. He's also the director of the documentary on the Blu-ray. So I'm just going to show the booklet again really quickly. That's the outside of Electric Lady. It's actually, you go down, and in the booklet you'll see some of the stairwells, and actually has the complete blueprint of the studio. Studio A is on this page. Studio B is here. You see the control room when you get this booklet to look at it. 48 pages, really well done. Every song is broken down somewhat. My only criticism of the breakdown is it doesn't, maybe they don't know, maybe Kramer doesn't know, it wasn't documented. What guitars did Jimmy use? What bass did Billy Cox use? What type of drum set did Mitchell use? It most of the time I'm sure that was the same, but what the equipment was, what the amps were, none of that is in here as far as I know. It shows you the consoles that they actually bought. There's actually receipts in here for some of the tape machines. For 2 Ampex tape machines, I believe they paid for both studios $84,000, 20% down, $17,000, rest payable in 3 years. And of course, Hendrix, after this thing opened, Hendrix went to London and passed away. Unfortunately, we will never know what he would have done. We could speculate. Some of this stuff is a little bit of a blueprint, if that's the right term, of what he may have done. Kramer was there with him, so Kramer kind of fills in some of the blanks. Here's the actual invitation to the opening, and I won't go through the whole booklet. Here's the studio being built. Like I said, if you look up the river that's underneath the studio and underneath parts of Manhattan, it's just amazing. It was back when the city was being built. They saw this little brook or little creek, and it was called the Indigenous American Indian called it Devil's Water. So it's got a great history. There's so much information on it. That was really cool. And of course, you know, it was under a place that Jimi Hendrix bought, right? There's some great shots. There's the rear with Kramer, and this may be Palmer. Two assistant engineers. The one assistant engineer was from Ted Nugent's Amboy Dukes. He was the drummer for Ted Nugent, and another engineer was a guitar player for Lothar and the Hand People, which was a house band for a club that Jimmy used to frequent, and Eddie Kramer frequented. And Eddie Kramer said to these two gentlemen, their names are in the book, and I believe it's Kim King, was the guitar player for Lothar. Lothar had a lot of people in their bands, but he convinced them to quit their day job or night job as musicians and become engineers. He said, I will teach you how to become engineers. And they became very, very capable. And he wanted musicians because the musicians could talk to the artist in their terms. And it goes into that in a documentary. So that was a really cool idea. And Kramer, you know, knew what he was doing. Kramer worked all over. He worked with Hendrix in London at Olympic Studios. And, you know, Hendrix worked in other studios in New York. So I'm just going to show you the records. Here's out of order here. Let me see. Here's record 1. They call it disc 1. I don't call it disc 1. I call it record 1. There. And that's the inside, the top studio of Studio A, which was Hendrix studio. That was a designed by Hendrix. Hendrix had these great visions. No one else thought of that. And the architect and designer, Stariak, basically did a membrane of plaster and air, and he said that sound was accidental, but it was it got a perfect resonance and reflection or absorption of the sound that would be that room. And that's what you want in a recording studio. You want the essence of that room, like in Chess Records or you know, Muscle Shoals or Stax or Abbey Road. Those studios have their own personality. There's one of the labels for disc 1, record 1. Here's record 2. Great shots of Hendrix. The Hendrix aficionado has probably seen some of these. I don't recall seeing these. Really nice. The only drawback is these are matted, so any smudge or if you drop a drop of liquid or water, be very careful because that's going to stain. So, but nice spine. I'm going to show them, then I'm going to talk about the music, which is what we're here for. It's a nice cover. There's another cover, I believe, probably Studio A. And what he did was he had ambient light shot from the ceiling in different colors, and the walls were white in certain parts of the building and the studio. So he could tell the engineer, the controlling engineer, assistant, or whoever was, I want blue light, I want purple light, I want green light. And I think that's what you see here. You see the green light. It almost looks like the northern lights, right? Here we have rear 4 with the console. I'm sure these are Studio A. And Hendrix wanted round windows, like a porthole in the swinging doors back and forth from the studio to the control panel, to the control room. Originally, the architect had normal triangle, rectangle windows, and Hendrix came in one day off the road and he goes, is it possible to do round windows, John? He goes, yeah, anything's possible. So they ripped them out and they put porthole windows in there. You know, maybe he was listening to the Yellow Submarine, right? Here's another one. Record 5, another console. Now, as far as the music, like I said, the booklet, which is great. It's a soft cover booklet, so it doesn't take up a lot of weight. Cheaper for them to produce, which keeps this cost down. This is a very affordable 5-record set. After I listened to it and drove my wife crazy, because she kept on saying to me, he's playing the same stuff over and over again. He's playing, because the way this is cut up is alternate records may have 5 records may have Dolly Dagger on it. Different takes of Dolly Dagger, different takes of Drifting, different takes of Angel. So you'll see the progression, not in a row like in some of the Beatle records that we get when they build a song in the studio. So we're getting these in different records, and you have the dates of when this was recorded, when it was mixed, if this was a final take, if this was a demo. There's some really cool demos in here, but the sound of each record is I was very pleased. Easy Rider, alternate mix. Valleys of Neptune, alternate mix. Straight Ahead, alternate mix. This is all disc 1, and it's just so well pressed and so well engineered. It's a complete bargain for $120 or so for 5 records, a booklet, a great documentary Blu-ray, and a 5.1 20 album disc for 20 songs on a 5.1 mix. It's just incredible. Astro Man is incredible. He also does a little jam at the end of Astro Man, Further On Up the Road, the Bobby Blue Bland song. That is a famous blues track from 1957. Hendrix just throws that in there. The band Mitchell and Cox are so well, they're so well vibed on that stuff that Hendrix is. They went right along. It's one of the greatest renditions. Very similar. I heard essentially like a Clapton solo, but it's just the sound is great. The different amps, we don't know what they are, but you can hear different types of amps. Different alternate mixes. I'm just going with it. Lover Man was recorded Electric Lady Studios July 20th, 1970. Vocals Hendrix, Billy Cox, bass Mitch Mitchell, mixed by Eddie Kramer. That song Lover Man, it's so good. Listen, if the people from Viagra listen to some of the lyrics, they could use that to sell their product, because it's just really good. Dolly Dagger takes 17 and 19. There's one track which is called the Long Medley. It's 26 minutes long. It's a complete jam. They were so tight for 3 guys. All right. Now again, Hendrix would mix his guitar, multi-track his guitar. So you'll hear 3 guitars, left and right, center, mixing, moving. Freedom is on here a few times. Angel, take 7. I think there's 3 tracks of Angel. That second engineer was Dave Palmer. He was the person who was the drummer for Ted Nugent and the Asbury, what was it? Whatever, the Asbury something. But that was Ted Nugent's band. So that was the drummer, and King was the guitar player. He was also a second engineer, and he really had a good relationship with Jimmy. He was a guitar player, so he would actually mix some of that as a second engineer while Kramer was doing the full board, and he said he was really in tune. Here's another Valley of Neptune demo, which is fascinating. I'm not going to go into what records they're on, because there's 40-something tracks. I actually lost track already. A great tune is Tune X, just came in, which was an alternate tune that was on some of the posthumous albums that they released. Tune X just came in from The Storm. I believe that's a mix of that. Drifting is another alternate mix. Second engineer is Kim King. He's the guitar engineer. He played guitar for Lothar. Messing Around is a funky little tune that was recorded June 16th, 1970. And the lineup is, for the most part, Cox, Mitchell. There's a few tracks, I believe, when the other drummer is on the other drummer that played with him from Electric Flag. He's on some tracks, but not in many. They also have Suma Sultan, who is a percussionist. There's also background singers on some of the tracks, and one track or two tracks list the Ronettes as background. And if I find it here, I'll talk about it. And in between all this breakdown, they're showing you shots of Jimmy in concert, and it lists the date. So while he was recording, during that week, he would go do gigs, and then he would come back and pay for the sessions. A great demo is Heaven Has No Sorrow, which I don't believe I've ever heard before. Heaven Has No Sorrow was an idea of Jimmy's that we never really got to do, says Cox. The demo cut was nothing of any real significance, but it probably could have evolved into a pretty dynamic song, something along the lines of Angel. It reminds me of Clapton's Tears in Heaven that he did when his son was tragically died, his little boy. Heaven Has No Sorrow demo, which is worth the price of admission. There's a great track, another outtake of Midnight Lightning, which was on the album Midnight Lightning, came out after Jimmy passed away, and Beginnings, which was on War Heroes, I believe. So Dolly Dagger Mix 2, Bolero, Hey New Rising Sun, Belly Button Window, In From the Storm Again, alternate mix, on and on and on, Astro Man. But this is the nuts and bolts. This record is not for everybody. This record is not for the people who like Crosstown Traffic or Foxy Lady or the Hendrix hits. There's some blues in here, some nice blues, like I said, further up the road. It's mostly this jazz, rock fusion. That was the direction we all know Jimmy was headed. If you bought any of those legacy albums from the Hendrix family, all done with Jerry Kramer at the board, they're really good, and that shows you where he was thinking of going, because that's all the stuff that he left. This is only 1970. His growth and change from 67 to 70 rivals what John and Paul, George and Ringo did from 62 to 70 or 69 or whatever you have it. It was just I was lucky to live in that period and hear this stuff, as a lot of you out there were, a lot of the older guys were, and gals, right? But the sound quality on this is superb. I was cranking this. I was getting fuzz tone. The bass is perfect. It's just so well balanced. I don't have anything bad to say about the recording, about the pressing. No noise. A few, you'll hear a little bit of hiss. It's not totally quiet and some in between tracks, but that's minor. It could be my system. That's minor. This record, Room Full of Mirrors, another alternate version of Angel. Here you have in the booklet, it explains what's on the 5.1 Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray doesn't have information per se. This gives you some more information in the booklet. And one thing I was kind of disappointed, and I don't know, it's Jimmy's studio, but there was nothing acoustic guitar. It was all different electric guitars, 3 or 4 double track guitars, electric bass obviously, but there was no Hendrix on acoustic. And if you remember the Hendrix movie, that Train Kept a Comin', or the Train song he did acoustically on the film after that film came out again in a few years after he died. It's a double album, so there's no acoustic. And not that Hendrix, he was an electric lady, so that tells it, right? But I would just wish that we would have had some more of that touch, of that acoustic touch. And again, the sound quality, the drumming, the attack and decay. I would give it a 10 as far as sound. Music-wise, there's a lot of repetitiveness, so we get like an 8 or whatever, but it's still Hendrix. No solos are the same. He's so cool in the studio. You hear him chit-chatting back to Kramer and the other engineers. You hear him talking to, it might be Billy Cox, it might be Mitch Missile. I heard a British accent in there talking about what we're going to do. Jimmy's actually directing it. He's orchestrating it. They weren't writing down the music. They were actually playing it. And they all remembered it. Billy Cox said it was all up here. We all knew what we were doing. And if he needed to hear something, he would know what tape it was in. He would tell Kramer, keep that, do this, do that. And somehow these songs got together. This sounds like a cohesive record. It's well paced. It's not like 5 jams in a row. There's a jam. There's a cohesive tune that could have been a track on an album. It's well paced. The 5 records are well paced. And like I said, the outtakes and the alternate takes are spread across the 10 sides of the 5 record set. So, what else can I say? Sound-wise, I give it a 10 or 11. Disappointing, there was no acoustic guitar. Disappointing on the Blu-ray that it didn't give you specific times when these interviews were recorded, but that's really tough. No place for this to go in the box set, so you have to devise something where you won't lose it when you pull your records out. Slips in really nice. Just be careful, because if you hold the box, slant it with our gravity pull in this world, a record or this could fall out. So, but all in all, I give this set a total 10. Just you can't, and price wise, you cannot underestimate how lucky we are to have this, and to have Kramer, JIMI Hendrix, McDermott, the director, to give us this gift, because it sounds fresh. It doesn't sound 50 years old. It doesn't sound like a 50-year-old recording. It doesn't sound, I'm not sure what I know the source is analog tape. I guess analog tape. But it doesn't sound digital at all. So I'm thinking it may have been tape to a digital master, obviously, is what they're doing today. But it didn't sound digital at all. Very organic, very live. Hendrix came to my house the last 2 days and brought his studio. And my system is a nice system. It's tubes. I get that tube vibe. It's completely tube. So you're hearing on your system, some of you people out there have unbelievable systems. Some of my friends that I in my area have unbelievable systems. So on your system, you could crank this sucker. There's no distortion. Hendrix is doing demos into a 24-track player. He's doing demos into a 4-track player. You can hear Hendrix's voice. He didn't sound tired. His guitar playing was not tired. It was not repetitive in the sense where every groove was the same. He mixed it up, and that's a lot has to do with the pacing of this 5-record set. The pacing is very important. I'm not a greatest hits guy. I like to see the pace that the artist intended. Now, we don't know what Hendrix would have intended on some of these tracks as far as concept and organization on a record, but I think Kramer and the team did a nice job, and like I said, we're very lucky to have this record. It's an inexpensive record. I tell you, it's going to make a lot of people happy this Christmas, because I hope Hendrix fans get this. It's not for the casual Hendrix fan, but what is, right? There's, the casual Frank Sinatra fan. He wants New York, New York. I want the different eras of Frank. I don't want New York, New York anymore. Okay, I don't want crosstown traffic anymore. But it all has its place. But this is for the people in the vinyl community that want to hear Hendrix again that want to hear Hendrix fresh. You know a lot of these tunes already. They were in Room Full of Mirrors. They were in some of the documentaries. A lot of these records were done already, but these are outtakes and demos, 38 that were never released. And Kramer I think they knocked it out of the park. I'm very happy with this. So that's it. That's my spiel. That's my impressions. Hope you like it. Thanks a lot for subbing. If you haven't subbed, please consider it. Tell your friends about Tony's LPs or Us. We're trying to get the views up. We're trying to get into the algorithm. You know, I try to do a video, at least a video a day, maybe a video every couple of days. There's so many great VCers out there. I don't have time to thank all of you for your inspiration. I watch you when I can. You all know who I communicate with. I've said that many times before. So once again, check this one out. It's really a bargain, and the sound is a 10 or a 12. You know, turn that amp up, crank it. Okay? Keep rocking. Hope you dig it. Ciao. Rest in peace, Jimmy.